Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to all two people that are here already live with us. What is up? I am Nick Lepri. I'm joined today, not with Matt Savoca, as per usual. It is Andy. How are you doing, Andy?
How's it going? I know that you guys probably feel like this is when you watch Monday Night Football and there's a doubleheader. It's like, oh my God, we got that B broadcast team. I came here, the A broadcast team used to be bad enough, but at least they got Buck on that one. Now, yeah, that's it. I'm Steve Levy filling in for that Raiders-Chargers game that they used to throw on at 10:30.
Love that.
But I'm doing all right.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Last night, I guess we'll just talk about that real quick while people join up. Did you watch all that game or did you shut it off at halftime? Because to be honest with you, if this wasn't my job, I definitely would have shut it off.
It was one of those great games where if you have a task to do on your computer, you can fully immerse yourself in that task and just kind of sporadically check the TV to the top left because audio is fine for a game like that. That's a radio game where you're driving cross country, something I've never done, so I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. You have a game like that on where you can clearly just listen to it and not miss a damn thing. That's a Game Center game. That's a Yahoo Stat Tracker game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're driving cross country, it might bore you so much you might fall asleep at the fucking wheel. So that might not be the best advice.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, you know what last night really taught me, ladies and gentlemen? You better cash in when you can. Okay, just think about when Matt Ryan lost that Super Bowl. He said to himself, and I'm just once again making this up, like, don't worry, I'll be back. I went to the Super Bowl. I'm an MVP. There's going to be plenty more chance. That guy moves slower than single-celled organisms. That is a slow-ass guy in the pocket. And, man, that was tough to watch. Tough to watch. I'll let you take over the other side of that game.
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson was it was embarrassing, honestly. Like, he went into the tent, and I don't even know what they were checking on. Like, he looked like he was fine. He got, quote-unquote, hit in the back, but he looked fine. Was he, like, crying in the tent or something? It was kind of embarrassing, honestly, with how bad that game was. And that last throw at the end of the game where KJ Hamler is wide open, I'm sure Russell Wilson is just rethinking that in his head all day today. And the worst part about the whole game was afterwards, they have a press conference, and after Russell Wilson still hits the Broncos country, let's ride, as if we didn't just watch the worst game maybe ever in NFL history. It's like, dude, you corny bastard. What is wrong with you?
And the same way we have our mourning undertones in our voice right now, he had the sad, depressed undertone in his let's ride. It was just like let's ride. Let's ride. You know, it's really funny, man. I saw that earlier.
Yeah, I saw that people were on Twitter talking about how Sierra's talking to Future now after that game, like how bad that was.
Yeah, well, when he went into the tent, I think they just tried to show him a couple highlights when he was on the Seahawks. Like, do you remember this, man? Do you remember this? I don't know. I think we're seeing a little taste of what happens if he tries to play like a traditional quarterback. I mean, do you remember when he was at his best? There was always that shuffling. He was always doing a little bit of shuffling in the backfield to buy extra time, and then some random ass receiver like Doug Baldwin would come open 40 yards down the field. You're getting none of that. It's all on script plays, and that just doesn't seem to be his strong suit.
No, not at all. And even on that last play, like the play calling is off. Like, why can they not call something where Russell Wilson can, run out of the pocket and try to scramble or something there? I don't know. It's just very off with Hackett. And I don't even know what to say, honestly. Like, I watched that game like half awake, like half my brain power was on it. Like you said, I was like looking at my phone. I was just looking at Twitter for the memes because the memes were much better than the game.
You remember the first couple games of Tom Brady's time with Tampa Bay, struggling to get a lot of stuff going because Bruce Arians was calling plays like he was Jameis Winston, putting him back in the pocket, trying to throw these 40-yard passes, and they were having a lot of, they were having a lot of trouble with it. And then all of a sudden they had this integrated version of the old, dink and dunk, everything, all short crossing routes and stuff. And then kind of blended that with Arians' system. And then all of a sudden it was the rest was history. So maybe they need some sort of re-implementation of what Russell Wilson feels comfortable with, because that's a nightmare over there.
Yeah, I agree. They need to shock him back to life, like what happened to J.J. Watt last week. So let's get into the questions here. Thank you to everyone that is live right now. We got 23 viewers. Hit the like button. Good morning, Miso. Good morning, Just Bob. Good morning, CFC. Sup, Ron? So the first question here is Michael Gallup or Palmer, half PPR? Thanks. It depends to me if Keenan Allen is going to play or not. If Keenan Allen does not play, I'd go Palmer. If not, I would go Gallup. These are two non-ideal options. What do you think, Andy?
I think at least, post ACL comeback, you usually want to avoid that first game. But even if you happen to play Gallup in that last game, you got the touchdown and 2 catches. Yeah. I think the biggest concern for this one is when you look at Gallup over the past couple of years, it's been shown that he's dealt with top coverage on the majority of cornerbacks he's played. So the majority of teams that the Cowboys played, even when they had him, Cooper, and Lamb, it was Gallup who faced the number 1 cornerback. So when you think about a guy, second game coming off a torn ACL, and it's not like he lines up in the slot, he's just going to be staring down the pipe at a non-post ACL tear, Jalen Ramsey, and that's just a tough-ass matchup. But if this was a different game, I probably would play Gallup because I think he has a chance of scoring a touchdown. He's their biggest receiver now, technically, so someone who could be a red zone threat. And Palmer, you're really playing with fire with these backup wide receivers because, as last week demonstrated, if you played him in DFS or anything, because you found out Keenan Allen wasn't playing, so you popped him into your lineup. What did he get you? 1 catch? Because, it's shown that Everett is really turned into the de facto number 2. And then they used Eckler out of the backfield once again. So you're really looking at the 4th option if you put in someone like Palmer. So that's a tough one.
Yeah, and in that primetime game, too, up against Kansas City, like if Palmer didn't score that touchdown at the end of the game when Justin Herbert had like half his rib attached to him, then you would have had nothing with Jordan Palmer. So I agree with you. Any other questions here? Curtis Samuel or Romeo Dobbs? Also, what do I do with Najee? You want to take this first?
So I know Samuel popped up on that practice report with some sort of injury designation. I don't know if he practiced it in a limited fashion or not at all, but it's definitely something that you should probably factor in because do you remember when he tried to play through injuries to some extent last year? He tried to maybe get on the feet, came out for 5 snaps, and then he was like done for the game. And then when you look at Dobbs, I mean, I know he dropped that touchdown pass, but clearly this is the guy they're trying to elevate as like the number, it's tough to say one option, not the option that's trusted the most, but in a game where they're favored by like almost double digits. I mean, if you look at his targets, the last 2 games, they're there. So I know it's scary to say, but you're going to have to trust this guy. I would trust this guy. High ceiling with Rodgers, obviously.
Yeah, I would go with Dobbs as well. I think anytime a game is played in England, a lot of shit kind of just gets thrown into the fan, right? Like, this is a game that, like, the Giants might win with Saquon Barkley playing quarterback, right? Just because it's in London. We saw the double doink last week. Typically, the games in London aren't the best. Just dating back to whenever I remember they started playing games, it has never been good. But I would go with Romeo Dobbs. And then what do I do with Najee? I think you just keep playing him. This week, I believe the Steelers are minus 14 against the Buffalo Bills. So obviously not the best game script for Najee Harris, but Kenny Pickett is a rookie quarterback, so he might just look to dump the ball off at a crazy rate.
Yeah, you got to see how it's one of those things where when a new quarterback comes in, you have to see how it kind of looks because sometimes it's completely different. Think about how Alvin Kamara looks different depending on who's playing quarterback.
Yeah.
And you just got to see. Hopefully, he's catching 9 balls because we know Ben was willing to do that with him. We haven't seen it as much this year with Trubisky, but who knows? Maybe the next quarterback that comes in, a guy who threw 2 picks in his first game, I think they're going to want some easy completion. So hopefully for you, but actually I think I'm playing him in the one league I care about. So at least if you get screwed, no, I'll be smiling.
Yeah, Najee Harris is ranked 41 in our flex rankings currently, so you're definitely got to play him. I mean, there's just really, unless you're in a like an 8-team league where you might have 4 amazing running backs, it's pretty hard to sit Najee Harris.
Brutal front that he's got to go against this week.
Yeah,
like
did you see
Bills
that clip
up there?
Did you see the clip of Von Miller on? I think he was like on Reddit on his Twitch live stream, and he was like, "Oh, like." Kenny Pickett's complaining that they're underdogs. No one looks at the Vegas lines. It's like, I bet you every single team knows what the line is.
Oh, they absolutely all that stuff. All
Yes,
that stuff. People check. They check.
of course.
Okay,
I mean,
these are not mega celebrities because I even know I know some regular I know some C-list celebrities and they're checking. They're checking. I'm talking about. I mean, maybe not the deep bunkers of the DMs, like like the inbox, other filtered and like under the bots and creeps and freaks. Maybe they're not checking that deep, but you can bet your ass they're checking things that have to do with their job, including the Vegas. If they go on any social media, it's almost impossible to miss it now. Ever since gambling is legal in a whole bunch of states.
yeah, they also have to know how many fantasy points they put up. I'm sure they get tweeted that shit a million different times.
Yeah.
But
Remember
yeah,
headline material? Oh, so what? They read just the article about how the game's going to go down and don't look at that little thing with the spread that's right there within it now? They know the
yeah,
spread. They know the spread.
yeah. Even like ESPN and shit now, like on TV, it literally says the spread. So
What a scam, by the way. Do you understand that if we turned on a game from 15 years ago, they're going to speak about this thing like it's a crime you should be jailed for decades? And now magically, our number one exclusive partnership, the most normal, regular thing ever, DraftKings. Like, it's absurd.
yeah, it is crazy. All right, next question here. Javante Williams or Jamal Williams, not Javante, because sadly he is out for the season. Aaron Jones or James Robinson. I would go with this sounds a little crazy, but I think I'd go Jamal Williams and James Robinson.
So it's two of the three? No, it doesn't
Yeah.
sound crazy because, I mean, look, I'm probably in the minority who was avoid AJ Dillon throughout the preseason because I thought the Packers
Uh-huh.
weren't going to be as good and he'd be a game script dependent running back, meaning in games where they're up, like you saw last season, they'll try to preserve Aaron Jones. However, I think this is going to be one of those games where if they get up, like they've had to utilize Aaron Jones a lot while these receivers have been struggling. This could be an AJ Dillon game. I weirdly enough believe that like see we're those guys now telling you to bench your top, he was
Second round
borderline
pick.
like yeah, and in a deep league he's like a first round pick. So Robinson you can't bench because he's going against Houston's atrocious defense. I think they have allowed the most carries per game to opposing running backs, so you're going to get a ton of chances. And then Jamal Williams, he's just running too hot with that touchdown streak. However, I do think there's a reason they're 3.5-point underdogs against a double backup. And that's usually like Vegas winking it to you that things aren't going to go so well for him up there in New England. How about this? Definitely start James Robinson and then get your Harvey Dent coin out and see which one it lands on for the other two. Because, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Jones, realistically, like if AJ Dillon wasn't there, he'd probably be like a top 5 running back in most people's minds. The issue is that like Dillon just completely vultures a lot of his value and just sees so many touches that it almost makes it impossible to really predict how good Jones is going to be. So I would just go Williams and Robinson. Next question here. So I assume that is Christian Kirk or James Robinson in the flex. They're both on the exact same team. I would go with Christian Kirk, I think. Christian Kirk.
What I would say is look at your opponent. If he's one of these guys you think you need to like touch the sky on, to catch, like one of these guys who has an absurd team, play Kirk because if he has just a ceiling game, if you are playing someone that you're favored to beat, I would play Robinson because Robinson is, probably the surefire thing for a high floor, like against an awful run defense at home after a bad week. I
Yeah.
mean, he should get a ton of work. So if you need a higher, like an absolute high ceiling where you get the 102 touchdowns. Actually, I hate to say it, but Robinson can do that. I don't know, man. That's up to you. If you're a receiver or running back guy, if it's half point PPR, maybe you could skew a little bit towards Kirk, but I probably would do Robinson there.
Okay, that makes sense. It is very close. I mean, Robinson, I don't understand why coaches bench running backs after they fumble once. Like I genuinely don't get it, especially when James Robinson has been such a hot hand, but what do I know?
Was it a benching by Peterson, or was it like that game was going wrong in every which way? Um,
Yeah, maybe more of that, I guess.
yeah, the Eagles. I mean, it was Lawrence fumbling left and right. So I don't know. I think that the the coaching staff shows they've really liked Robinson. Coming off that torn Achilles, they've looked zero inclined to give the ball to ETN, who looks as small as Dexter McCluster out there. So I think you should be fine with Robinson.
All right. Next question here. I need to sit one with DeAndre Swift out, 12-team PPR, Singletary, Stevenson, Jeff Wilson, Dillon, and ETN. To me, it's pretty easy. Kind of a layup. I would sit ETN.
So he's only got to sit one?
Yes.
My only worry is what if they throw them an absolute beating and he gets his work? Yeah. I'm sitting ETN as well. You probably shouldn't be starting him until he shows you something.
Yeah, I mean, last week he did look a little bit better, but I mean, the guy week 1 said that he was scared to catch the ball. Like, he said the ball was coming towards him and he was quote unquote spooked. And it wasn't even October yet, so you hate to see that. Next question here from Listo. Greetings from Cali. Greetings. We starting CH or Godwin at the flex? Cheers, fellas. You want to go first on this one?
Well, it's pretty embarrassing that we're up a couple hours after this person, and they're up at 6:30 a.m. bright-eyed. They brushed their teeth at 5:30 in the morning. They went to the gym already, and we're sitting here saying, "Oh, it's CEH." We're starting CEH or God. Look, if this is 3 weeks from now, we might be saying something different, but you can't turn your back on someone who hasn't even screwed you once, unless you're that person who's going to foresee the first screw job. Godwin, let's see him truly get there. I know he had the targets, and I know he made it through the last game, but this guy, his first game back left at halftime, the last game, that looked like he got hit in the back by a 90s WWF steel chair. CEH is one way or another. I don't care how many touches he's got. Until he screws you, you can't be benching that guy. I'm not a huge fan either. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think Godwin, like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if at the end of the season, like, he finishes as a top 5 points per game scorer. But at this point, Clyde EdwardsHelaire is just running so hot, and the matchup is good on Monday Night Football. Hopefully, that's not what we saw on Thursday Night Football, because these primetime games have just been fucking awful.
Yeah, and good news, ladies and gents. You know who's there next week? The Denver Broncos, Monday Night Football. I mean, this is incredible. Do you imagine ruining? I mean, is this 4 primetime nights in 6 weeks?
Yeah, it is. 4 of 6.
That's Hey, NFL, I know you like making your calculated gambles. Awful calculation with that trade and promote him up to prime. Learn your lesson. Don't promote that team to prime time until you see him for a year. All right?
Yeah.
For next time some guy gets traded.
Yeah, there's like the Browns in 2019, if you remember. They had so many primetime games, like prime Baker time. It was hilarious, and they were just awful.
For the rest of my life, and I know Thursday Night Football slowly started taking better games from Monday Night Football, but for the rest of my life, I will always associate Thursday Night Football with Jaguars-Titans. I feel like they played 3 times a year on Thursday Night Football. It was unbelievable. It was always Mariota versus whoever the hell Jacksonville was rolling out there at the time. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, exactly. And the Jags always wear those like mustard yellow jerseys that were absolutely disgusting.
My God. Ugh.
All right. Next question here from Car Cash. He says, Isaiah McKenzie or Deontay Johnson? I don't see myself playing McKenzie after he said that he blacked out on the field like 5 days ago. I'm going to go Deontay Johnson even with Kenny Pickett.
Well, this is like a how do I look at myself on Wednesday call, where sometimes you just got to play the guy where if the other one goes off, you don't end up saying, how the hell do I look at myself in the mirror? And if you bench Deontay Johnson, who I'm sure you invest a little draft capital in, had a ton of targets the first couple of weeks, you're going to be pretty pissed. And when you think about the size of, what are they? They're 2 touchdown underdogs, right? Isn't it something crazy like -14? Well, if they're going to be down that much, think about which team's potentially going to throw more. Like, I don't know if this is going to be a blow-up spot for Buffalo in a game that, Vegas thinks they're easily going to control. If this was a game where they had to throw it like they did against the Rams or like the Ravens or like Miami, I would probably go. No, I would definitely go Deontay Johnson on this one.
Okay. Since we've been doing this for like 20 minutes, I am going to throw the rankings onto the screen. The only guy that really stands out to me that I find is just kind of funny is that Cooper Kupp is still number one. And I don't think that's a bad ranking. It's just very funny with how bad Matthew Stafford has looked and just this whole LA Rams offense as a whole, that Cooper Kupp can still get like 15 targets in a game any given week. It wouldn't surprise me. It's actually crazy just how bad the Super Bowl hangover has been. It's almost like the Bengals have kind of broke that off. The Rams are still in full hangover mode.
Well, I don't know. The Bengals could easily be freaking 0-4. Like, if you really think about who they lost to, man. They lost to the Steelers team, who nobody's losing. The Jets just went into Pittsburgh and beat them. They lost to them. Then week 2, they lost to Cooper Rush in his first game. I understand, but you're talking about a team that went to the Super Bowl. You could say, but Rush has won a couple games. No. They were 7-point favorites on the road. They should be able to win that game. Then they beat the Jets, not in convincing fashion. And then against Miami, their offensive line was getting swallowed up. And then it took Tua leaving the game. And then Bridgewater had him almost beat. So there's a hangover going on. They've just managed to – no, they're both 2-2. But at least in in the Rams case, at least you could say it's somewhat foreseeable. Whitworth retiring, Beckham wasn't there anymore. They were hoping that Robinson filled into that role. He clearly is not. So now all of a sudden, without Van Jefferson, this would be the equivalent 1 year ago if there was this exact time, if there was no Robert Woods and no Van Jefferson and Whitworth got hurt. I wonder how good they would have looked early in the season. Yeah,
probably not very good at all. The other player here on the list I think we should talk about is Alvin Kamara. This guy has been abysmally bad. I kind of talked him up a lot in the offseason. It seemed like they weren't going to he wasn't going to have to get suspended because of what happened in the club in Las Vegas. So I was like, okay, he's a 3rd-round pick. He should be a 1st-round pick. You got to draft him. And I guess that's karma because he's been absolute ass. So what do you think about Alvin Kamara, even if Andy Dalton is the quarterback, which is what it kind of projects to be right now?
You should be praying for Andy Dalton to be there. Like for DFS purposes, he's my best sneaky play of the week. You're getting a Seattle team that Jamal Williams, who ran all over. Well, from a season perspective, it sucks. What you've seen sucks. Like Jameis, this isn't the Sean Payton Jameis, which was a worry. This is like the old school Jameis, just winging it all over the field, not willing to take as many checkdowns as like Payton would have forced him to take. And Kamara hasn't done as much with the work that you would have hoped. That being said, he should be one of those guys that's able to turn it around. But now I guess he's approaching the age where with his frame, he gets hurt rather easily. And it's something you didn't have to worry about early in his career, especially when he was splitting time with like Ingram and stuff like that. Since they've asked him to carry the bulk of the load, it's doing what you would imagine it would do to someone of his, size. So it's very disappointing. But if there's someone who could probably dig himself out of this hole, it would be Kamara, especially with Andy Dalton. If you're seeing Dalton playing, you should be happy because he's willing to take those checkdowns.
Definitely. All right, so we'll move back to the questions here. Do you think ETN will break out at any point this year? Jags could have a crazy running back duo, and both him and Robinson could be really good. I think ETN will break out, but it's not going to be for a while. Like, this really is kind of ETN's rookie year because he was hurt all of last season. It seems like ETN himself doesn't even have full confidence in him. So I would say he could break out, but I do think right now you should fully assume James Robinson's the guy and just leave ETN on your bench. He's like the most expensive handcuff ever.
Yeah, and the problem is he's going to make some unbelievable play out of the backfield as a receiver, score some 50-yard touchdown. You're going to play him next week. He's going to get 6 touches, and you're in a real tough spot. You're in a tough spot because they're not going to commit to him for the same thing I just said about Alvin Kamara. If you look at him, you would say to yourself, oh, this guy's getting hurt if they run him up the middle 12 times a game. It's just the truth. I hate to break it to those truthers out there. What you would hope to see is repeated use out of the backfield, 6 catches a game. And until that's designed and scripted for him, you're a little screwed. You're a little screwed. You're in Tony Pollard mode, where you hope he takes his 8 touches from last year and somehow busts one for 40 yards. That's an awful place to be in my opinion.
Yeah, but the worst thing about Tony Pollard is it's like Zeke is fucking awful. Like, he's running in quicksand and Tony Pollard's behind him. At least like in this situation, if you have ETN, you can kind of do some mental gymnastics and be like, okay, well, at least James Robinson is good. So it makes sense that he's not getting touches,
Yeah. I guess maybe that makes you sleep at night, but
Yeah.
it sucks nonetheless if you have him.
Definitely. All right. Vaughn says full point PPR, Brady or Lamar, concerned about Tampa Bay's injuries. At this point, I think Brady is going to bounce back at some point. Like, this is the divorce game. Did just lose his wife up against Atlanta.
The
So the
divorce
divorce
game.
narrative. So, but at the same time, while I think he's probably going to go crazy, you can't sit Lamar at this point. Lamar looks like he might be the fucking MVP of the league. So I'm going Lamar. What do you think?
The divorce game.
Yeah.
That's great if it goes down like the flu game, the divorce game. You're talking about this weekend, huh? I mean, oof. Yeah, man. You would think Brady's gonna carve up Atlanta. What are you gonna do, man? I don't know how you got both of them, but this is a Harvey Dent to me. Go get your coin out and flip it.
Yeah, I definitely get that. I mean, out of all the weeks for Brady to have a big game, like he struggled so much. He's starting to catch on. Like this is the game where he plays good, but I just can't sit Lamar.
Yeah.
Next question: Allen Robinson or Hunter Renfro? I think you might want to like if Hunter Renfro plays. I think you just take Allen Robinson and fucking cannon him off into the sun at this point. Like he's getting targets and he's not scoring. He's like wide open in the end zone, so I don't think you can trust him. So if Renfro plays, even if he's on like a peg leg, I'm playing him.
Yeah, Carr loves those free first downs. He would love to throw it short if that pass is available. He's been gone the last 2 games. He relies on him on so many third downs. Allen
Yeah.
Robinson, you might as well call him Darnell Mooney at this point. So that's an easy choice, especially going up against Kansas City, where typically if you've watched how the Raiders have played them, they know they have to keep up with them, and it's usually games where Carr's more likely to throw it than he is to run it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, next question. I'm going to pivot to the tier 2 ranking so you guys can see that. Who should I start and put in my flex? So you need two of these guys. A.J. Dillon, Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Pierce, or Brees Hall. What do you think, Andy?
Well, you got to go with Pierce, and there's such a sizable workload. I saw he had like 6 catches for nothing last week, but the fact that he had 6 catches doesn't matter, though, especially if it's like PPR. But if you got 6 catches, it ain't going for 0 yards 2 straight weeks. So, like, you're just seeing a constant uptick. First with the carries, now with the catches. And if you're getting all of that, you saw what Miles Sanders did to Jacksonville last week, albeit with a better offensive line. I don't know how you could bench him at this point. Then looking at the other guys, they all have appeal. So, Brees Hall's a guy who has seen his playing time uptick, and he's used in the receiving game. Don't know if this is PPR. Yeah, he is on the better side of a timeshare between the 3 guys you've listed. So I'll take Pierce and Hall.
Okay. Yeah, that would be my answer as well. I think Hall and Stevenson are kind of close just because the Lions defense has been just abysmally bad, right? Like they're the best offense in the league, but they can't score or they can't just stop anyone defensively. And if Bill Belichick's pretty smart now, obviously the team has been a disaster this year, but the way you beat teams that score 1,000,000 points is just by running the ball, chewing out the clock. And I assume Bill Belichick's smart enough to know that. So I think we'll see a healthy dose of Stevenson, but I'd go Hall and Pierce as well. So the rest of tier 1 is on your screen right now. We do have Christian Kirk ranked relatively high. We talked about him a little bit earlier. I am definitely surprised we see Nick Chubb at 18. I know the matchup isn't technically the best up against the Chargers, but he could easily be the number 1 running back on the week. What do you think about Chubb?
Well, I know that the Chargers, I mean, wait a minute. The Chargers just played Pierce, who went wild,
Yeah,
and the week before that, they played Robinson, who went wild. No, you get his ass in your lineup. I don't know.
I agree.
The run defense was their issue all last season, and it's their pass defense, which is so great. So teams utilize the run. You're only concerned with Chubb in this game. To me, it's not run defense. It's just, is this one of the games where Hunt happens to have one? It hasn't been. It's been a little while since like week 1,
Yeah.
I think, since Hunt is at a really good game. So I think that's your only concern. But I mean,
Okay.
he should be above Christian Kirk. Come on.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Would you trade away Mike Williams and Melvin Gordon III for Devontae Adams? Gonna be honest with you, I don't think I would do that. Obviously, Devontae Adams is significantly safer, but Mike Williams has the upside every week to score like 30 points. He also has the downside, like his floor's the basement, his ceiling is one of those big ass towers in Dubai. So I'm gonna keep Mike Williams and MG3. What do you think?
I would say it depends on your record. If you're 3-1, 4-1, if you have a great record, I'll make the trade because later on in the season, that's trending downward for both of those players. When Keenan Allen comes back, you're going to get you could get end of season Mike Williams from last year. Remember him? If you don't remember him, go take a look. And then Melvin Gordon, they're just looking for reasons to bench. I mean, the guy fumbled again last night, and Latavius Murray, this is the one game you're going to see him inactive. And if you watched him last week, he actually looked fine out there in London. So when you're talking about a team that can't score points in the Broncos and they're fumbling left and right, you even saw them. He shouldn't have had to split time at all with those bums last night, but he actually did. So, Adams, to me, like if this was week 8 on, which is what fantasy really, like you're trying to win, you're really looking at, in my opinion, you're not going to be wanting to play Melvin Gordon. You're really looking at Mike Williams for Davante Adams. I think you take Davante Adams when Keenan Allen's back at that point.
You know what? You might be right. I just kind of feel like Mike Williams might not have that extreme fall off like last year, but I could also be wrong. Davante Adams is just much safer. So I'm a flip flop with you. I kind of agree. With Derrick Henry catching passes now, glad I got him with the 4th pick. Do you think that this is going to keep up where Derrick Henry is seeing a bunch of targets?
I 100% do. They foreshadowed this last season in the few games where, because if you remember, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones missed a huge chunk of last season. So this whole he's the only guy they have, it's like some fake narrative. They didn't have those guys last season, and they had to, think their way through it. There were a couple games last year where he had 4 or 5 catches. But, we do that thing where we just pretend like it never happened. And this is one of the only concern really would have been, how is he after that injury with the foot and everything like that? And I've always thought that Derrick Henry early in the season when defenses are fresh is more likely to struggle. Then as you get into the colder months when guys don't want to tackle as much, they're out of the playoff race. That's when he starts busting those second half runs for deep ones. And I believe that pass game utilization, absolutely, when you look at how they're going to win these games, until maybe Burks comes along with that turf toe, and Robert Woods is what he is, he's good, but he's also coming off the torn ACL. Like Henry is everything. And when they're close in games, it's going to be great to have him. And I absolutely think that passing game usage, he's never going to run routes like Eckler, but these are clearly designed screens where he leaks out of the backfield. And they need to do that so that they don't telegraph what they're doing. If he comes out earlier in his career, he came out of the game, they brought in a passing back, Dion Lewis, and they know, all right, it's a pass play. So this is good on their part. It probably will even help his running game as well.
Yeah, that picture of Dion Lewis and Derrick Henry standing next to each other will always be like ingrained in my head, like with just how little Dion Lewis looks like. Looks like Derrick Henry could have ate him for breakfast.
And then that also one with Mark Henry, right?
Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram. Mark Henry.
The world's strongest man. Yeah. Sorry.
All right. That's fine. That was funny.
Well,
all right. So the next
wrestling in my head.
You brought up the steel chair earlier too.
Yeah.
All right. So we got the flex tier 2 rankings. Obviously, Cortland Sutton played. Didn't look the best. He ripped the ball away from that other guy. That was like strictly like he must have had himself in his fantasy lineup. He's like, dude, I have 4 fucking points. Let me get this ball, because he clearly should not have went to do that.
I lost a prop bet on that catch, so it stung. It stung. I took Pittman over Sutton in receiving yards, and that was really Sutton's only major play, and that's what allowed him to win that bet. That Brett, yeah. Tough. But yeah, I guess he helped his fantasy managers somewhat.
All right, and then the other guy to talk about here is Miles Sanders. Now, I was someone, I don't know about your opinion in the offseason on Miles Sanders. I've watched a bunch of videos. I don't remember if you talked about him, but I didn't think he'd look this good. Like, he actually looks much better than seasons prior. Now, he's still not catching a high amount of passes like he did his rookie year, but I feel like Miles Sanders is just significantly safer now. I wouldn't have him ranked anywhere near the top 30, but I can kind of see it because of how good the Eagles are.
He was on my, I did one video of players to stay away from, including the aforementioned A.J. Dillon, and then one players that you want at their current price. Miles Sanders was one of them, and here were my points. Other than Nick Chubb, who has the highest yards per carry for their career in the entire NFL out of active players, there's two people that were tied for 5.1, and it was Aaron Jones and Miles Sanders. And Doug Peterson's not there anymore. And they showed a commitment to using him at the end of last season, which foreshadowed his early utilization this year. I was so against people doing the full disrespect because you didn't have to invest anything in him. Playing behind the number one offensive line in the league. Like, to me, they showed you all the hints, yet people, they couldn't let go of what was in their head from the Doug Peterson days, and they deserve whatever has happened to them in terms of, Miles Sanders falling to somebody else. But I am a Sanders guy. You're going to get a couple of garbage games because of the dual threat ability of Jalen Hurts. But in games where they're controlling or games where they want to protect Hurts from himself, those calls are clearly coming in from the sideline. We're running it 25 times. And he's going to have a couple blow-up games and maybe a couple of stinkers because of the lack of utilization in the passing game. But maybe that will uptick. He had a catch for like 15, 20 yards last week. We'll see about that. And you never really know how touchdowns are going to go by the goal line. But I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the system. You put him behind, like, look at it. You got Joe Mixon in front of him. This guy can't get 2 yards on people. They give him 28 carries. And I don't know. It just feels great when you have an offensive line always pushing forward and they're always getting positive yardage. So I kind of like what I'm seeing from him.
All right. Alex in the chat mentioned that Chris Godwin on here twice. That is my fault. I was typing this up while I was watching that game, half awake. So 22 is not Chris Godwin because we already had him on the rankings. It is A.J. Dillon, and I do not agree with that at all, if I'm being honest with you.
What, with the A.J. Dillon?
Yeah, 22 would be A.J. Dillon.
So they ranked, out of curiosity. Wait, is this your rankings?
No, this is the our stochastic rankings.
All right. Well, what's wild is I actually believe that it's crazy if you were to see A.J. Dillon in front of Aaron Jones because Aaron Jones is just outperforming him left and right, other than that week 1 weird-ass game where the Packers got killed. However, I agree for this game for the thing I told you before. In games where they're like, 2-score favorites, you're probably going to get more Dillon because in games where they have it sealed, even relatively early, I believe you're going to get a lot of Dillon. So you have to, that's how I kind of forecast those two. If I think the game's going to be close, I'll always use Jones. If I think the Packers are going to run away, which they've shown that ability from nobody really this year, I would use Dillon. But I guess this week against the Giants, he could be a good play. But, I don't like him more than these other guys that I'm seeing there.
All right. So I moved to the next page here because we do have to go in like 5-ish, 10-ish minutes. So
all right. Time flies when you're flipping through rankings.
Exactly. All right. So next question here. Shell says, thank God it's Friday. Najee, Dobbins, Khalil, and Kareem, who would you bench this week? I assume you need to bench 2 or 1. I would bench, I think David Montgomery might play, so I would bench Khalil Herbert and Kareem Hunt. That's kind of how I see things.
Yeah, if he doesn't play, I would play Dobbins and Herbert. Okay. If Montgomery doesn't play, because he still had over 100 yards total last week in what was considered a bad game.
Yeah, it's just because everyone kind of fluffed him up to have this really big game. I think that's why I had him ranked way higher than he finished.
Yeah, that's why he's a great DFS play this week because anytime somebody screws someone, I go to them the following week.
Makes sense. Start one at the flex. Ayuk, Edmonds, Pickens, Algier, Mac Hollins. This is a tough question. I think this week I would go with Pickens. He just had a ridiculous target share with Pickett. But, this game's going to suck ass. Like, the Bills' defense is going to be all over them. So it is hard.
I got a sniff for this week. A little Ayuk is getting in the end zone. He's due for a touchdown. We know Garoppolo and him have like a little thing. He's had his 4-5 catches these last 2 weeks. Now in a game at Carolina where they'll probably be able to throw. he gets in. He's getting in that end zone. That's what I
Okay.
personally feel.
All right. I get that. Should I trade Leonard Fournette and Deontay Johnson to get Diggs? Yeah, I would do that.
God, Fournette has such massive value with Brady.
He does.
Oh God.
But like this might be Deontay Johnson's downfall. So like if
You could remove him from this trade. I mean, it's just like, oh God. If you have faith Johnson can put up numbers with this kid, I wouldn't. That's tough. You're a winner either way. How about that? If you
yeah, I
have
like
depth,
Fournette.
maybe if you have no depth, maybe if you have like during bye weeks, if you have nobody on your bench you're going to enjoy playing, but you have Diggs as like this superstar, then you can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Because that's coming up, and like depth is a huge. No one really talks about that in fantasy, but mid-season you always have one or two injuries, and then the buys happen, and then you're scrounging on that waiver wire for some bum. So if you have absolutely no depth and it's a deep league, you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, buys start next week. I know the Lions are on bye next week, so
yeah,
it's gonna start hitting like a truck. Next up, Nick, as if you're not here, right? Just asking me. Start on in flex 2 full PPR. Rashad Master Bateman, Eli Moore, or Pickens. I would go Rashad Bateman and Pickens. I hope Bateman plays because the fact that he had like a what is that called? Like a boot on his foot isn't the best.
yeah, he's not playing.
You don't think so? Okay, then you have to go with the other two.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you see this with Harbaugh. I mean, yeah, if he's in a boot, he left that game, didn't come back, hasn't practiced at all. Let's see if they even throw the fake limited practice on him today. Actually, you can't play him because it's the Sunday night game unless you have someone you could flip in
Oh
there
yeah,
that you really like.
that's true. Yeah, so just go Eli Moore and Pickens. We got a super chat. Shout out to Robert Mitchell. Thank you for the super chat. I need a kicker. I have Penny in my flex, so who should you drop for the kicker? Kenneth Walker III or Rashad White? Since you have Penny, it does kind of sway this question. But at the same time, like, do you think Walker's ever going to break past Penny? That's just a real question here.
I'm a huge handcuff guy, and couldn't be more evidenced as to when I was a huge Eli Mitchell guy before the year, and that's the same exact reason why Jeff Wilson is having the success he's having.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't have taken Wilson before the year, I'm screwed. So, like, how is White gonna make his way to your roster? There's one way. One.
Yeah. Injury.
If Fournette's gone. Now, this other guy has huge value to you as a penny owner. So I'm not dropping Walker. No way.
Yeah. See, I don't think Walker's ever going to take over for Penny, and I don't think White's ever going to take over for Lenny. So I think you're just going to have to drop Rashad White, even though he did look good last week. Like, does anyone really forecast that to happen again? In my opinion, no.
Yeah, and at least if Penny gets hurt, which we've seen that in the past.
Yeah.
Like, I always look at it this way. If you drop those two guys and your running back went down and this was like a waiver bid system, I don't know how you guys do it. What would that waiver bid be for your guy if Penny went down for Walker? People are
Like
going to be
40
dropping
bucks.
their whole budget.
Yeah.
Someone will. So if you have somebody of that massive value, you gotta make sure he stays on your roster as the owner of Penny.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that, honestly. So I would drop Rashad White. Again, I really just don't see what happened up against the Chiefs to happen again. So thank you for the super chat. On the screen right now, we got the final go rankings here, the top 56. Nyheim Hines obviously did not have a good game. We had him ranked at 47, but the process was correct because he would have had
12 catches. He would have had 13 catches.
Yeah, he would have went crazy.
On this list, Damian Harris set to have a monster game. Remember that game last year where Belichick insulted the league by only throwing 4 times against the Bills?
Yeah.
Well, as 3.5-point favorites at home and a double backup quarterback, and you saw what they did last week, expect a million runs. So both of those running backs are going to be good.
I agree with you. So before we get on out of here, I do have to do the ad read. Then we'll answer 2 more questions and then skedaddle. So shout out to our sponsor of today's video, Underdog Fantasy. I don't have the read pulled up, so I'll just do it straight off the dome. So Underdog Fantasy offers a brand new best ball tournament. It's not really brand new, right? It started like a couple weeks ago, but they have the best ball resurrection tournament week 6 through 17. All you got to do is draft your team. That's it. The best part about best ball for me is I hate sitting up like an asshole doing the waivers on Tuesday night. I hate accidentally starting the wrong guy in fantasy. You don't have to worry about that because you can't do waivers. There's no trades. There's no in-season management because they automatically set your lineup at the end of the week with the highest scores. If you deposit $100 on there, they will give you an additional $100. It's hard to get websites to just give you money for free. So an additional $100 definitely helps. And that big tournament that I talked about is only $10 to enter, $100,000 to first place. And especially if your teams aren't doing the best in redraft, right? Maybe you have a bunch of injuries. You have Javonte Williams and you have Jonathan Taylor who missed this week. And you have a bunch of guys that are hurt. You just redraft again and have some more fun in fantasy. So make sure you guys do check that out.
Who
Last
said
question.
this guy needs a read? Who said he needs a live copy? It's all up here.
Yeah, I've read it like 50 times. It's in the dome. So last couple questions here. We'll go Jamal Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Pierce, or Wilson. Pick 2. This is tough because these are all good options in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm a Niners RB1 stan, so I'm playing Wilson regardless. He played 90% of the running back snaps. No other running backs are seeing the field other than the handful that Debo gets. So I'm playing him, and my personal feel is that Pierce just has a massive workload. Dobbins, third game back since the torn ACL. Yes, those touchdowns made him at a huge week last week. We'll see. You know what? This is tough to say, and I think Belichick's going to be able to defend the run, but come on, this is hard.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Williams and Wilson. It like you brought up, it's hilarious. Like everyone was on their knees sucking off Jordan Mason in the offseason, talking about, oh my god, look how good this guy looks. And then fucking Kyle Juszczyk is getting more touches than him. Just a crazy scene in San Francisco. So Jeff Wilson and Jamal Williams would be my answer. But again, these guys are all really close in my mind, except for Jamal Williams. I think he's clearly the best.
Yeah, life is good for you if these are your problems. Champagne problems.
All right. Swilly asked, what will Brian Robinson's role be early on in the season? Like this week, for instance, the next couple of weeks. I personally believe that Brian Robinson is not going to take over instantly, but I do think that there's a reason why they named him starter 2 hours before he got shot because they think he's the guy, right? They believe that he is the guy. So I'm going to go ahead and say I think Brian Robinson could be like an RB2 going forward. And Antonio Gibson hasn't helped himself because he has 3.3 yards per carry. That just does not cut it.
Yeah. I would say see it first. See how because now they're going to have 3 running backs. They're going to have McKissick doing 2-minute drills. They're probably going to rotate. Even if they hate Gibson, they're not just going to give him 0 touches per game. You could be looking at limited touches and few catches for Robinson. So I would not just thrust him into your lineup right away. You got to see how he's utilized.
Makes sense. So let's do just some rapid fire. I'll just answer all the last questions and you can go in as well. Higgins in a 4th for Adams in a 7th. I assume this is a dynasty question, right? But who the fuck has a 7-round pick? So is this like next year's 7th? Is this a redraft question? I think it might be.
It's probably a keeper league.
Yeah, keeper league. I think I'd rather have Higgins in a 4th because I don't think like Adams is significantly better than Higgins, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the 4th, you get a good player in the 4th.
Yeah. Okay. Adamson says, who am I playing? 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a flex. Full PPR, Najee, Herbert, Singletary, Zeke, Johnson, Waddle, London. I would go with Waddle, London, Najee, Herbert, and then Deontay Johnson.
I say I trust you on that one.
All right.
Too many names on the screen. I can't read.
I have the same issue. Is Kamara worth keeping? Yeah, you can't get rid of Kamara because like right now his trade value is like literally nothing.
Give it this week. If this week doesn't pan out where they rested him extra and he's got Dalton checking it down at home against a run defense that just got destroyed, then might be time to worry.
I agree. What's up, Raz? How you doing, man? AJ Dillon or Dobbs in the flex or Dobbs? How the fuck do you say this guy's name? I
think it's Dobbs. I think it's Dobbs. Like I think you have to pretend the U is a B.
Okay, Dobbs, like Josh Dobbs, or whatever that guy's name is. I'd go Romeo Dobbs.
Me too.
All right. Duvernay or Rondell Moore? Dude, Rondell Moore's made of fucking glass. I'm going to just YOLO and play Duvernay because if Bateman doesn't play, Duvernay is going to be the second option.
Yep.
Elijah Moore or Pickens? I would go with Pickens, but I hate them both, if I'm being honest with you.
I'd go Moore. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. At least you got the hope that he showed a connection last year with Wilson.
That's true. Stash Elijah Mitchell, league winner in the playoffs. Really just depends on how hot Jeff Wilson is, because I think if Jeff Wilson is running hot, they're not just going to pivot back to Mitchell, because that's just kind of the Shanahan way. What do you think?
I do know from the Wilson years, he's had injuries multiple years, and you want, if you can, stash Mitchell, because even if he comes back, it's what I'm telling you. Like Wilson, he's had so many issues. He runs so hard. He's one of those violent runners. So he's a guy you definitely want, because Shanahan runs his running backs into the ground. There's no more timeshare. There's no more Mostert, Coleman, Breida. Those days are gone. He runs guys to the ground.
Yeah. No, I definitely would stash Elijah Mitchell. I'm just saying I'm not too sure he's a league winner necessarily. Being in England, I keep missing the live streams. When do they normally go live? Okay, so Tuesday through Friday, we're live 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thursday is 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Sunday is 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we're going to have to just get out of here. We can't answer all these questions because there's just so many now. But last one here. Hollywood, Hall, Dobbins, or Dillon. We've already went over about like 5 minutes. So Hollywood, Hall, Dobbins, or Dillon at flex. I'm going Hollywood Brown personally. They're not using him how I thought they would. They're just force feeding him the ball like he's fucking Michael Thomas. So I'm going to go Hollywood even against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's all she wrote. If you guys have any other questions that we didn't get to today, it's impossible to get to every question. Make sure that you do just after the video, just leave it in the comment section, and I'll go in there and I'll answer it later when I have some more free time. So thank you guys for watching. Andy, you got anything to say here? You want to pump your stuff up here?
Oh, if you want to follow me, my name's Andy Francess, like you see on your screen, on all platforms. It's a beautiful thing. Like I say, like, you know how you got people with like, oh, the real Mike Jenkins _42 in Pittsburgh. No, it's just that name on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. You can see me on the Odd Shopper channel. I do picks. Been running pretty well, starting the NHL stuff, which is my true specialty next week. And yeah, you can check me out there, or you can never watch me again. It's up to you.
All right. Make sure you guys do check Andy out. I like his NHL videos. I watch them all the time. Last year in the playoffs. I hope my Devils make the playoffs this year, but probably not. So thank you guys thank you guys for watching the stream. I really appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way out. I'm gonna hit the outro here. Then we're gonna skedaddle. Love you guys. Thank you guys for everything. Adios.